Today's episode is brought to you by Positively Productive Systems, whose mission is to be the antidote to your stress and to provide compassionate productivity resources and coaching that help you heal and achieve. Be sure to check out both free and paid resources at positivelyproductive.com/resources.
We love our businesses because they provide us with flexibility. They provide us with autonomy. They provide us with revenue. We need to make money for our households and to achieve the goals that we want. Yet that's not enough. If it was, we probably would work at a corporate job that had all the benefits and it had a set salary and it had bonuses and we knew what the pathway was, but we don't want that because we want more. We want to have that bigger meaning and fulfillment in our lives. That's the reason we do the work that we do. And so then it's digging into why this business?
You're listening to the Positively Living Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Zawrotny, founder of Positively Productive Systems and a coach certified in time and stress management, helping clients make space for what matters most in their lives. Join me each episode and we'll talk about decluttering, stress management, habits, personalized productivity, gratitude, and so much more. I understand the overwhelm of life because I'm a wife, mom to kids and cats, and a former caregiver. I'm here to help you choose what's right for you so you can do less, live more, and breathe easier. Sound good? Let's get to it. Whether you have a mission that drives you and gets you out of bed every morning, or some ideas and experience that you thought might inspire others, this episode is for you. Speaking up can be challenging, especially for women, and that's why I planned today's episode and invited a very special guest. It is my goal to encourage you to speak your mind and share your mission, and this episode is all about helping you do just that. Before we get started, I wanted to take a minute to celebrate with you. Today's episode is number 75 in my own path of speaking up through the Positively Living podcast. And as of this recording, we're closing in on 8,000 downloads, 26 5-star reviews, and 33 5-star ratings. By the way, if you haven't rated or reviewed the podcast yet, that would be a tremendous gift to me. For iPhone users, Apple has a platform for reviews right under the show information. And if you're an Android user, you can leave a review on Podcast Addict. As always, I'm so grateful you're here with me and excited to inspire you to action and to reach for what you want. Today, I welcome Carol Cox to the Positively Living podcast. Carol is the founder of Speaking Your Brand, a coaching and training company that helps high-performing, purpose-driven women entrepreneurs and professionals create their signature talks and thought leadership platforms. Carol is host of the weekly 5-star rated Speaking Your Brand podcast, and during election seasons serves as a Democratic political analyst on TV news. Carol was named as one of Orlando's Women of the Year in 2021 and has been featured in Forbes. Through her company and content, her mission is to empower more women to find and use their voice, to tell the stories that need to be told, and to activate ideas for change. I've been following Carol for years now, and it's no secret I'm a huge fan. I worked with her in 2019 to create my signature talk, and what came out of it was something greater than I ever expected. I was on her podcast as a guest to talk about my thought leadership platform when it was brand new. So if you are just stepping into your own, you'll appreciate that conversation. In our conversation today, Carol gives us 5 questions to answer that will show us where to begin as thought leaders. She shares the challenges we face as we begin our thought leadership journey, why we hesitate, what helps us push through, and what it can look like for each of us to be a thought leader. One of my favorite parts was how she encourages the use of our preferred content. This is an effective and productive approach that won't scare away my introverts. You don't have to be Brené Brown, and it's not like you're going to be. It's okay to be you and to be a thought leader in a way that works for you. Being a thought leader does involve leadership. I mean, it's right in the title. But what makes it effective is not the platform or style. It's the message. I highly recommend following Carol and downloading her free gift that she mentioned, a thought leadership workbook at speakingyourbrand.com/Lisa Z, Lisaz. If you'd like to quickly figure out your preferred content channel and how to speak up more in a way that feels right for you, I encourage you to book a productivity boost session with me to focus on that. In 30 minutes, we can have your primary platform selected with the most effective next steps. Go to positivelyproductive.com/boost and use the promo code podcast for a special listener discount. Now let's join Carol to talk about speaking your mind and mission. Welcome, Carol Cox, to the Positively Living podcast. I am so excited to have you join me today. It's been a long time coming.
Well, thank you, Lisa. I am delighted to be here.
So we go way back. I have worked with you on my own signature talk, which has actually grown into something so much more. And that's a big part of what we're going to talk about today. But before we do that, I would love for you to share a bit about who you are and who you help and really what makes you light up.
Okay, well, these are really good questions, Lisa, to kick us off with. So my company is called Speaking Your Brand, and we work with women entrepreneurs and professionals to create their signature talks, as you mentioned, and their thought leadership platforms. So obviously speaking is a major aspect of thought leadership. And so we focus a lot on that, but it really is understanding what is your thought leadership message, what's the bigger impact that you want to have in the world, and your business comes along for the ride with that. So what really makes me light up is when I see the women that we work with, or even just women that I know, kind of step into this space where they want to use their voice. They're developing the confidence and the courage to do so. And then they know they need that supportive community to help give them that nudge, because we all need that. I need it too. Because sometimes we feel like, who am I to say these things? Or why me? Why should people listen to me? I know we're going to get into this, Lisa, but I truly believe that all of us can be thought leaders in our space. We don't have to wait for someone else to give us that title.
Yes. And that's what I want us all to walk away with today, is this reminder that we can absolutely be thought leaders and express what's inside of us, because there's so much wisdom that we have, especially collectively. So given that, let's start with, why is this so important for us to speak our mind and our mission, our passion, our brand? Why is this so critical?
So I'll give you two answers, Lisa. I'll give you kind of the practical business application answer. So as we all know, there's a lot of content out there on the internet, social media feeds, podcasts, videos, email newsletters, blog articles. There's a lot out there. And so for you to kind of cut through the noise and to find your people so that your people find you, you have to put your message out there in a way that attracts them. And the same will do these 5 strategies to achieve XYZ. We've all heard all of those by now. We've come across them. So we need deeper, richer content is what's going to attract those people to you. So that's the first kind of practical reason to do it. The second reason to do it is that I see this in myself and I see this in the women we work with, is it really becomes a personal development journey. You learn so much about yourself by going into this journey, about understanding what matters to you. Where did it come from? Why does it matter to you? And why is this the impact that you want to make? And so you end up understanding yourself so much better. And really, how I see thought leaders is that thought leaders help us to be self-reflective, understand ourselves better. But really, the thought leader, you're doing it for yourself first.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I can feel that in my own experience, in that, when we work together and all of the times that I've had opportunities to be a guest and to start to share my story, and stories, of course, being so important, right? Because that's what we all connect to. It's what we love to listen to, and it's how we resonate with each other. And we have that moment where we say, yeah, I get that. I experienced that as well, right? Every time I've been encouraged to tell my story, it's my own set of ahas. It's like such a deeper understanding. So yeah, absolutely. So we not only get to cut through the noise and help others, but we get to grow by doing it.
Yes. And Lisa, so can I share something that just happened to me?
Yeah.
At the time that we're recording this, so the weekend prior, I gave a keynote speech at an in-person speaking engagement. I was so excited because it was the first one since the before times, since before the pandemic. We were in person. Of course, the audience was wearing masks, and it was about maybe about 70, 80 women there. So COVID precautions and all of that. I mean, I didn't wear a mask when I spoke, but I'm vaccinated. So I'm preparing my speech, and the event organizer wanted me to talk about finding your purpose. But if someone's coming to me for a keynote, that's probably like, I'll talk about other things. I was like, okay, sure, I can figure out how to tie my story into finding your purpose. And so I was working on my speech, and I had a story that I shared about a professional experience that happened to me about 15 years ago that was really difficult. Like it closed off a career opportunity. I lost my voice. I lost my confidence. I lost my purpose. And it took me a number of years to come back from that experience that I had. And literally, during the time I was making my speech, talking to this audience, I had an aha moment. And it had to happen as I was preparing the speech. But I realized that it was 10 years after that experience that I started Speaking Your Brand, because it's now 2015 when I started this company. And I originally thought I was starting Speaking Your Brand just to help people with their presentations. People told me I was good at it. I'm like, okay, sure, I'll start a new business. I'll help people with presentations. I didn't realize until a couple of years ago that really what I was doing with Speaking Your Brand was helping the women to give them the supporting community that I had needed back 15 years earlier in that professional experience that crushed me for so long. And I was like, oh, that's why I'm doing this business the way that I'm doing it. But it was literally from talking it out loud in a thought leadership message that made me connect those dots.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's so true because we have this, I think, a tendency to teach what we need to learn, right? And to offer. Actually, that's a great thing right now. If you're in a moment where you're like, what do I do next? Create the thing that you would have wanted. And you did that just intuitively, not necessarily realizing it until now, but it's so true. That's exactly what you've done.
Yeah. So the point is, like, the more that you go on podcasts and talk about the things that matter to you, talk about your business, talk about the work that you do, you go on different platforms, the more you'll start connecting your dots of your thought leadership message.
Absolutely. I mean, I've seen so much growth even since the time you and I have worked together in terms of what I'm doing and like living and working my purpose, especially even with this podcast. It's been an incredible journey. So, stepping back for a moment, if this is what we're trying to do, we know how much benefit there can be in it. What is it that's holding us back? Why is it that we don't? What are you seeing?
Yes. Oh, Lisa. And I am so happy to dig into this topic because I think this is so important for us as women professionals and entrepreneurs to have more women leaders. I have called it the expert trap. And what happens for a lot of us, because of the society that we grow up in, as young girls and then as women, we get the message implicitly, but sometimes explicitly, that we have to do and be more. So we have to study harder. We have to get better grades in school. We have to do better at our jobs. We have to check all the things off on the checklist before we can apply for a position in order to be seen as equal as men, because we grow up in a patriarchal society, whether we feel it hanging on us or if it's just in the water, like it's the water that we grow up in. As such, a lot of times as women, we overcompensate on competence. So we want to be seen as incredibly competent and incredibly good at what we do, which is great. And so we become the experts. We get all the degrees, all the credentials, all the certifications, all the external validation, which again, we need experts. If I want to go get something done, I want an expert. However, here's where the gap lies, is that as women, a lot of times we are less likely, we're a bit more reluctant to put ourselves out there with opinions, to put ourselves out there with ideas that we haven't been externally validated by all these institutions, because we feel vulnerable when we do so. And we see this happen on the internet. You know, how people attack women who put themselves out there. So that's why we need that supportive community. So it's in there, like it's in our DNA, it's in the society we grew up in, but it's up to us to push past that, to put ourselves out there, because that's where change is going to happen.
Yeah, I think your point about the validation, there's so much. And studies even show that, like, even in the situation of going for a job, that men will be more inclined to go for a position that they're not fully qualified for, more so, right, than women will. This idea that external validation, and of course, we all want validation to some extent, but the idea too that when you are a thought leader, when you're bringing up an idea that you want to say, one of the tips that you always give, I think is so excellent, is like, what's bugging you in your industry? What's different? What's going on that you're like, what the heck? When you answer that, now you have to step into that, and it's not the norm. It's not the thing that you can say that everyone goes, oh yeah, 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 yeah. Like for me, everyone loves to say I'm I'm busy, I'm busy, I'm busy. And I'm like, let's stop saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm actually going to say I'm not busy. And it's going to make people go, that takes more, I think, confidence and effort, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And I can say this, as a woman, a people pleaser, I've been a people pleaser. I've been a perfectionist, and all of these tendencies that we have comes from the society that we grew up in. And so it's like the first step is awareness, recognizing that we have these tendencies and then seeing them when they come up and saying, okay, I'm not going to go into people pleasing mode now. I'm going to challenge these ideas. I'm going to put my own ideas out there instead.
Right. And the more that we understand the why of what we do, and this is a common point of communication here on the podcast, we've said it so many times in so many conversations that the more that we understand that why, it drives us and it helps push us past. And that's a big part of what you explore with the community that you've created.
Yes, absolutely. Because so many of, again, the women that we attract, and I know Lisa, you're like this too. So we have our business, and we love our businesses because they provide us with flexibility, they provide us with autonomy, they provide us with revenue. We need to make money for our households and to achieve the goals that we want. Yet that's not enough. If it was, we probably would work at a corporate job that had all the benefits and it had a set salary and it had bonuses and we knew what the pathway was. But we don't want that because we want more. We want to have that bigger meaning and fulfillment in our lives. That's the reason we do the work that we do. And so then it's digging into like, why this business? Why this type of clientele do you want to work with? Why this problem that you want to solve? And even I'm thinking about you, Lisa, and I know the work that we did together on your signature talk now a couple of years ago, and really talking about the impact that your mother had on you in that experience, and how that drives so much of the work that you do, the content that you do, and who you help nowadays.
It's so true. And again, that ties back to our stories and connecting to them and growing and understanding them. On a recent podcast episode of yours, I can't remember her name, but she was talking about trying to find a story that related. And it took a while back to understand that this is something that she had innately in her. You know who I'm talking about, right?
Shanta Wilkinson.
Yes. Yeah. Shout out to her. That was so good. And realizing even at such a young age that she was making these connections and that this is how she was working. People ask me all the time, were you always organized? And I'm like, well, I had some chaotic points in life, but I think my mind always went toward making those connections. Right. And so now I organize people's minds and their ideas and their to-do lists and things, but yes, you can kind of see and make those connections back. So we have this reason why we want to do this. And it's like just multifaceted and really incredible that it's going to make a difference. It's going to cut through the noise, make our businesses better, help us understand ourselves. We're held back by this tendency to people please and to overcompensate. What can we do? What are the steps that we can take to step away from that and step into this thought leadership, and maybe by way of expertise?
Really, maybe best is not the right word, but the best thought leaders, they're in their lane of expertise, but they're willing to go outside the margin. So obviously Brene Brown is kind of like the penultimate thought leader in this space. And she has her lane of expertise that she works with around leadership and culture, whether it's individuals or within organizations. So she stays in that. But if you listen to her podcast or you read her books, you know how much she puts her personal story and personal journey and personal experience into the work that she does. And if you think about her TEDx talk that went viral, 12 years ago now, the reason it did so wasn't because she shared her academic research about vulnerability and shame and connection. It was because in her talk, she said, oh, and I went to my therapist and I realized what I was studying actually applied to me. And she had this oh my gosh moment. I didn't realize that I'm dealing with this too. She was vulnerable. She was real. She shared about herself, and that just connected the audience even more to her and the work that she does.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I know that I share that a lot too. I often say that I'm the hottest mess of an organizer you'll ever want to meet. But that's the brilliance of it, is that you can be human and you can be living these moments and learning these moments and still be incredibly helpful and supportive to others
Yes, absolutely. And so much more relatable. And, the thing with Instagram and social media, they've said this now for a number of years is that, people present a facade of perfectionism, a facade of a perfect life, perfect business, perfect family, and so on. And we know that that's not the case. No one has the perfect anything. And so when you are willing to be more transparent, be more vulnerable, and it can seem scary at first because you wonder, well, if people see this like a weakness that I have, are they not going to want to work with me anymore? They're not going to want to follow me anymore. But in actuality, it validates but normalizes to them that, oh, if she experiences this too, she's going to understand me. And then she'll be able to help me even more.
Yeah, this for some reason I'm coming up with this. I was like, weakness does not equal, and I'm like, weakness actually, like, or it's like humanity does not equal weakness in that you're not able to. It's actually that you have more empathy for the situation that someone is in. I know that, over the course of time when I've wanted to be healthier or I've wanted to lose weight or whatever it was that I was trying to do, I didn't want to go to someone who's never been through it.
Exactly.
I want them to not only be able to tell me how this can work, what would be best for me, but that they can also say, I get it. I've been there.
Yes.
That's super powerful.
Yes.
Can we talk now a bit about what this would look like then, stepping into thought leadership and also making sure, because I know I've heard it from my clients too. It's like, especially when you have introverts and you're like, what does this mean? You have to be on a big stage and how does this look? And I don't want to Brene Brown this thing, like that's too much. Can we talk realistically about what it could mean or what it could look like to be a thought leader?
Yes, absolutely, Lisa. And thank you for these questions. So, yes, we do not all have to be Brene Browns. And guess what? We're not. There's like celebrities, like the celebrities, and she's one of them. And we're not all going to get to that level. And we probably don't want because, that has its own share of issues, I'm sure. Okay. So, think about for those of you listening, what is your preferred content channel? Lisa's a podcaster. I have a podcast. We love podcasting. That's probably our preferred channel. Maybe you like writing. So it could be blog articles. Maybe you want to write a book. Maybe you like writing posts on LinkedIn. Maybe you like creating videos, funny videos, just you talking in your videos, live videos, pre-recorded, whatever it happens to be. So think about your content medium of choice. Whether your audience is 50 people or 500 people or 5,000 people, that's okay. It doesn't matter. And then here's what I like to recommend, like baby step through it. So you don't have to go from today to tomorrow, all of a sudden sharing like your most embarrassing or vulnerable story that you've ever had in your life. That's probably a little bit too much. You'll have a vulnerability hangover, which is okay. You'll recover from it, but it's probably not going to feel that great. Instead, baby step through it. Like start sharing a little bit more, and see how your audience resonates with it. But be careful who your audience is. So if you have been attracting like the wrong kind of audience who's only looking for certain things, they may not like this new vulnerable, real version of yourself. And that's okay, because that's probably not necessarily the people you want to work with if that's the journey you're on. But if you have the right audience and you have the right people in your audience, they're going to resonate with it and they're going to let you know. And then you're going to feel like, oh, I'm going in the right direction. And then just keep stair stepping into that. So think about these questions. And Lisa, you mentioned one of these before is kind of what ticks you off about what's going on in your industry. It could be in your community, what have you. Like, is there something in your little corner of the internet that you're feeling like is not getting talked about, is getting missed? Like there's something going on, whether it's business practices or industry practices or the way things are going, and you're like, things could be better. So think about that. Think about what are trends or conversations that are happening in your industry, and what's a unique angle or perspective that you can share on a trend that you see that's going on. The other thing to think about is where are the gaps in your industry? So it's kind of related to what ticks you off. It may not tick you off, but just like where are there gaps? Where are things not happening? So for example, I did a Google search a couple of months ago for thought leaders because I was looking for some like examples and pictures. And what comes up on the image search? All men. So then it's like, oh, okay, well, that ticks me off, number one. But number two, there's a gap there. Like, where are the women thought leaders? We don't associate that term, which is hence why the work that I do. And then also, then the next question is, what's the lens that you see the world and what do you want to be known for? So I can get on my soapbox about a lot of different things, but I don't want to be known for that, especially related to my business and my thought leadership message. So what is it that you want to be known for? So kind of tie those things together to start thinking about your thought leadership message.
I love that. Okay. So, yeah, the what ticks you off. See, but that was an easy one for me to remember and one that kind of made me chuckle because it's like, okay, what irritates you? Everyone else in your industry is talking about this, and you're over here going, wait a minute, what about? But you're right. There's also, too, it doesn't necessarily have to tick you off, but it could be a gap or you're just like, not enough people are talking about it. And I think that that part of it can be the scary part because you're like, okay, nobody else is talking about it. So I have to stand up and talk about it. But like you said, you can do it in baby steps. And interestingly, even though it's been a couple of years, one of the things that I talked about with you and that we processed through was how much I wanted to start connecting this idea of being productive, right? And decluttering and simplifying and living well and connecting that with our grief and trauma and how important that was. I'm actually seeing more and more conversations now than I did before. And interestingly, too, the number one downloaded episode of the Positively Living podcast is on a trauma informed life. People want to understand more about trauma and that in the way that we talk about it here, just like with all of what we're discussing, that it's okay and you can figure this out and it's going to work out. But the more that we know, you said before about self-awareness being so important, and that's the place to start, right?
Yes.
I'm seeing the movement and it's exciting because now I can talk about it. It's not just like, oh, that's an interesting thing to talk about. It's more like, ooh, tell me more. And so hopefully we're going to keep seeing that movement. But we do have to step into that moment where we're like, okay, no one else is talking about it yet. But maybe if we start, they will.
Yes, absolutely. And, here's the thought leader. The word leader is in there, which leader means like you're ahead of the pack.
It's right in the name.
Right.
And then, yeah. And it's like, oh, really? Okay. I guess I'm leading the, I know.
Yes, you are, Lisa. And I'm really grateful that you're having these conversations with your audience.
Thank you. I find great reward from it. So I will add another thing to it. Not only are we, cutting through the noise, like you said, and developing ourselves personally, but you're also going to find it incredibly rewarding when you step into your thought leadership and share. And what I really love about what you described, you made it really easy here. Okay. Simple steps of asking these questions of yourself. And then that your audience size doesn't matter. It's really the type of audience, who you want to talk to, and then finding those baby steps, not only in what you're sharing, but also how you can be a thought leader through a blog.
Yes, absolutely.
The platform is not what matters. The audience size is not what matters. It's you sharing your message in this way. And one of the things, there's so many episodes that you've recently released that are just so perfectly timed with what we're talking about. Episode 232, making that distinction, definitely listen to that. Influencer, expert, and thought leader. So you can kind of compare and contrast and see where that is. 233 is on modeling, right? The type of model that you have for thought leadership. And you know what my favorite part was? You don't have to choose. It can be a hybrid. I'm like, yay, because I'm such a hybrid.
Yeah. So there's 3 types of thought leadership models I've identified, and it's personality driven, research driven, and mission driven. And a lot of times we see the personality driven thought leaders and we think we have to be just like them. Right. And we don't necessarily, we can be research driven or mission driven, but I will say if you're an entrepreneur, you have to throw a little bit of personality onto your thought leadership because that's what attracts people to you.
Exactly. It's like, listen, you may have the facts and the research that you want to share with them, but you're going to have to do the reels if you're on Instagram, if you want to get the algorithm to play with you, right?
Oh my gosh, Lisa. So I totally do not do reels because I apparently do not care about the algorithm, which means that no one sees my post.
But, on the other hand, good for you. Stand your ground and do what you want to do. But I'm actually having a blast doing them. They're kind of ridiculous. I love to play on Instagram. But the one thing I promised, and this is another tip today, is I promised myself that if I were going to do them in order to get the algorithm to play, I would do them my way. They'd be the content that I want, the way that I want. So mostly I lip sync really ridiculous sound bites and I make them super quick and simple, but I'm having a good time and it seems to be working. There you go.
Well, that's the key, Lisa. That's the thing. So for me, the fun and anything related to like Instagram reels or stories does not go together. So I hang out on LinkedIn.
There you go. And you know what? You're amazing on LinkedIn. So definitely follow Carol on LinkedIn. listen to the Speaking Your Brand podcast. And I also want to shout out episode 241 as well, the expert trap. So that extends the conversation that we had here about what kind of trap that we fall into. Yeah, there's just so many great episodes. Anything else that you would like to leave the listeners with to inspire them to step into their thought leadership?
Yeah, I would just say that, as women, we need other women to do this, because then we see it's possible for us, whether it's women who are our peers, women who are younger than us, even, younger girls. They see more women, out there. They do Google searches and they find women in the search results. They see them on stages, they see them on TV, they see them writing books, etc. So it's important not only for yourself, but for those other generations. And then I'll also will let listeners know, Lisa, that I have a thought leadership workbook that has these questions that I mentioned, as well as some other question prompts and other things to go through to start kind of jotting down ideas for your thought leadership. And they can get that at speakingyourbrand.com/Lisa Z. So speakingyourbrand.com/Lisa Z. I'm not going to make you have to type out the whole Lisa's whole last name. Just Lisa Z.
Everyone thanks you.
I know. So you can get that there. So you don't have to scribble and take notes today.
Wonderful. And the next question was, where can we find you online? So right there, speakingyourbrand.com, right? Definitely check out the podcast. We'll make sure to have all these links in the show notes. So with that in mind, are you ready for a little more fun and a rapid wrap up?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. So please fill in the blank for me. The song that always makes me dance is
Born This Way by Lady Gaga.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Literally, so I have it on my playlist on my phone. I actually create a playlist that has songs that put me in a good mood. And like before I record a podcast episode, like I'll listen to it. But literally, if Born This Way comes on, I cannot stop myself from dancing.
Then that is absolutely the right choice for this, because this is going to go on the Positively Living podcast Spotify Dance Playlist, Volume 3.
Ooh, great.
Okay. Next, fill in the blank. The quote or mantra I share all the time is?
I don't have one particular quote or mantra, but I will say this. Quote women. There are so many books I read, so many presentations I attend by women, and guess who's quoted throughout the entire thing? Men.
Yeah, I was going to say the same people that end up on your thought leader Google image search.
Exactly. Because it's like the Albert Einstein, the Steve Jobs, the Abraham Lincoln, all fine figures. All of them said important things. We've heard them. We've seen them. Let's bring the women in.
Well, let me tell you how many times I've quoted Brene Brown and Melody Beattie. And
Good.
The list goes on. And I'm going to start quoting Carol Cox. And her quote is, quote women.
Thank you. Perfect.
Love it. Okay. And a last fill in the blank, the resource, book, or app that's made my life better.
So I mentioned Brene Brown already, but I will say her 2 podcasts, Unlocking Us and Dare to Lead. I am a loyal listener. As soon as an episode drops, I am there. And really, I so appreciate her storytelling, her willingness to dig deep with her guest and with herself, because I really feel like that's a role model for so many of us.
Yeah, I think that's such a great choice today, considering we mentioned her and that we are looking for women to continue to inspire women. And that's what you're all about. One last little bonus thing is, what or whom are you grateful for today, Carol?
Okay, so I am grateful, Lisa, for Instagram. And now this may seem like a very odd answer, considering I just said that I hang out mostly on LinkedIn and I don't do the reels and stories and things. However, I'm saying Instagram because I follow you on Instagram, Lisa. And whenever I see your posts, they're funny. They make me laugh. They make me smile. They touch me. And they're funny, they're funny gifs or they're funny memes or what have you. And I really they always light up my day when I see them in my Instagram feed. So I'm grateful for you and your content.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. It's absolutely my goal to lift people up, to reduce the stress, and to just encourage everyone. So the fact that you get that from my feed is a gift to me. And I'm going to go ahead and be as cheesy as they come, because it's on brand. And I'm going to say, I am so grateful for you, Carol. I want to thank you for shining your light in this world and for raising your voice in this world for all of us and for sharing it with us today.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I have so enjoyed this.
Thank you for joining me today. Your time is precious and limited, and I'm honored you chose to spend it with me. If you have feedback, questions, or want to schedule a chat, head to positivelyproductive.com/connect. And if you are looking for any of the resources referenced on the podcast, from books to products to training and more, go to positivelyproductive.com/resources.